Welcome into another edition of Spits and Suds, or as we like to call it, Spits and Suds One-Timers. I'm Gavin Spittle of 1053 The Fan. Super excited, and our Spits and Suds listeners, when we announced that this was going to happen, they got excited because Rich Peverley, the Director of Player Personnel for your Dallas Stars, is joining us, and excited to dive into Rich's career and talk some Stars at the beginning. How are you, Rich?
Great. How are you?
I'm doing great, man. Is there a buzz around Ontario right now? I mean, you live in the area and All-Star Week. Do you
Yeah.
have any activities?
Yeah, it is. It's getting quite exciting around here. The weather's actually been pretty nice too. So, yeah, I think they haven't had the All-Star game here for 20 years. I think most people are probably excited about the skills competition. I bet you the ticket for that would probably be a lot more in demand than the actual game. But there's lots of people from around here going and really excited to see the Stars that are playing in it. And it's created a little bit of a buzz, that's for sure.
Have they asked locals like Rich Peverley to participate in any activities?
They have no idea who I am. No, no. Mostly, I'm sure Maple Leafs alumni for sure. Yeah, not me.
Oh man, that's great. All right, so a lot of people are asking because this is an exciting team, not just what's happening in Dallas, but through the system, and you're a big part of that. First off, how are you enjoying this management role? Because I believe you had always had this vision. You ended up a great player, but you also had that vision of becoming in management in hockey, just being around the game.
Yeah, I just love the game, and I think when I was even before I was playing, I wasn't I wasn't drafted. You kind of try to envision your life when you're younger and what you enjoy doing, and I wasn't sure if I'd be able to play in the NHL or even play pro for that matter. So, you envision it, and I always enjoy, the transaction part, the scouting side of it. Even when I was like a teenager, I just enjoyed going to games and watching, and I always kind of had it in my mind that I wanted to be in some kind of role in hockey. I had no idea what capacity that would be, but as you start, if I played and got into my career, and unfortunately with what happened to me, but I had my career ended early, but it did give me a foot in the door to work with Jim Nill and the Stars organization, which has been phenomenal for me. So 6 years of player development, which was outstanding. I really enjoyed working with the AHL coaches. I working with our prospects coaches, all the players. I think we had some success, with some of the players that we graduated up to the big team. So that's been exciting. And even now, this is my third year now, player personnel, and I've really enjoyed this side of it. It's a little bit more conversations about the big team and transactions, trades, amateur draft, a little bit of everything. And I feel very lucky to be given that opportunity by Jim and for everyone in the organization to put the faith in me to do it. And I really enjoy it. It's a fun team to be a part of. Great city. We've had some success in the past few years, and hopefully even more in the future.
Well, as a guy who played up the middle in his career, I got to ask you about Wyatt Johnston, Roope Hintz. I mean, these are top-tier centers, and I'm just amazed specifically at Johnston as far as the development and the maturity at such a young age. It just, we hear about sophomore slumps. We see it a lot, and, I mean, it just seems as though taking the game to the next level every single year.
Yeah, Wyatt is, I think first you have to give a lot of credit to Joe McDonnell and his staff, scouting staff. It was a COVID year. Only time Wyatt had played that year was with Team Canada down in Frisco. But we had seen him quite a bit during his 16-year-old year. Our scouts and myself, and obviously Joe, and Joe made the final call on that one. And it's a heck of a pick. I'd say in terms of hockey sense, I can't go through everyone in the draft, but he has elite hockey sense. He knows where to be. He knows where the puck's going to go, and he's got a great finish with the puck. He can put pucks in the net. He picks pucks off. He's not the biggest guy, but he's always in the right place. He's hard to get like to hit. He hasn't, fully matured into his body yet, but he's still quite strong on his skates and his edges, which makes him hard to knock off the puck. So, he's an outstanding player, and we're lucky to have him, especially contributing at 20 years old, and like he did at 19. It's he's a special player, and Roope is the same thing. I think for Roope, he's come a long way. I think the development path that Jim set forward, and years ago when he came in here, and then we've kind of followed suit, is you got to play in the minors. And we've had all our guys almost play the minors except for Miro Heiskanen, which and Wyatt Johnston, but those are special players. But it doesn't mean just because you play in the minors doesn't mean you're not going to be a special player. So everyone has a different development curve. So for Roope, playing those years in the minors and going to a Calder Cup finals and being part of some good teams down in Texas, but then kind of earning his confidence and getting more and more confident in himself, he's turned into an unbelievable player. I think he's exceeded expectations for sure, but for a 6'3" centerman who skates like the wind, they're pretty hard to find.
Yeah, absolutely. And Stars Nation around here, Rich, are also talking about the names Bichsel, Stankoven, and Bourque, and I know it's a good problem to have, but man, I mean, tearing up Texas and Bichsel in the Swedish league, and man, if we could just get a little bit of Zdeno Chara out of Bichsel, that would be pretty amazing. I mean, the size, the ability, the puck moving. I mean, what's your scouting report on all three?
Well, I think for Lee and Bichsel, I think he's, he came over, he got his feet wet here in North America. I think for himself, he probably wasn't fully ready to be here. I think it still had that in his mind to go back to Sweden and play. And that's fine. And that's okay. Everyone kind of has to feel fully comfortable with, he's moving over here from, he lives in Sweden, but he's a Swiss player. And that's a big jump for a 19-year-old kid. So, he's been in Sweden for about 3 or 4 years now. And, that's home for him. That's comfort for him. And, I think we need to be patient with our young players. And when they're ready to come over, they're ready to come over. And he's a big, strong, good skater, makes really good outlet plays with the puck. He's mean. He's got some offense to him. He skates really well. There's a lot of upside with him, and we're really, really excited about him. He's a great young player. For Logan, Stankoven, and Mavrik Bourque, the stats just speak for themselves.
Yep.
They're outstanding young players. They play on the same line. With Logan, he's, whenever you watched him play, you're just taken over, and your eyes just glued to him because he never stops moving his feet. He is constantly going all the time. He's an engine out there. And other guys jump on the backs of those types of players. He doesn't ever take a shift off. And he's strong. He's got a great release. He's a motivated player, and he's going to be an exciting young player for us in the future. Not many 20-year-olds can come in the league, score 20 goals in its first, 40 something games in the American League. And he's been outstanding. Mavrik Bourque, elite hockey IQ, great playmaker. His game has taken off this year, but I think it probably all started after the Christmas break last year. He started to feel more comfortable. Like I talked about with Lee and Bichsel, there's that comfort level and that confidence level that these players have, and they have to find it, and they have to feel comfortable in their new surroundings. Mavrik Bourque coming from Quebec, he moved down to Texas last year. It's a big culture shock.
Yep.
It's a big life adjustment. He's lived at home, you're living on your own now, and it's a big life adjustment. And if you don't feel comfortable away from the rink, you're not going to feel comfortable on the ice. So, I think for Mavrik, he felt comfortable after the second half last year, and he's taken off even more this season. And you can't speak enough about the coaching staff in Texas with Neil Graham and his staff, and they've done an outstanding job with the development of the players down there as well. So hats off to them as well.
Mavrik Bourque much improved in the face-off circle as well. Can Rich Peverley take credit for that?
Well, it's something I'm not taking all the credit. I think I tried to talk to the guys about face-offs, and we work on them in development camp and training camp, and with Mavrik in the past few years, we did lots of video to talk about that stuff, and that the player deserves all the credit. I just try to help them out, and for Mavrik, he's a smart player and he's a strong player and he understands what he's got to do. So he a lot of the time with face-offs, you can prepare all you want, but you need to go out and you need to experience the strong players, experience high pressure moments, and learn from tactics and things, and that's just experience, and it takes time, and you can't expect a young guy to come in and just dominate in face-offs. It's nearly impossible. So there will be a little bit of a transition period when he gets to the NHL, and that's okay, and once he figures that out, he'll be totally fine.
That's one of the biggest things that I've noticed since you played, Rich, is that there's a little bit of a, if you were kicked out of the circle, for instance, chances are you might lose the draw. Now, current Dallas Stars, if, one gets kicked out, then another one with a great face-off percentage just goes right in. I mean, it feels like we have centers all over the ice.
Yeah, and I think that just speaks to the depth and volume of our team, or the depth and strength of our team. You have players that played center, and usually centers can play wing if they have to, but it's tough for wingers to go to center. So, sometimes it's a little bit of you could say it's a strategy or not, but, Sam Steele, great option there. He's gotten better on faceoffs, but he can play wing if you need him to, and he's playing center right now. So, the same thing with Tyler Seguin. He's an outstanding guy on the faceoffs, but he can play wing if you need him to, and you can move him back to center. So, having that flexibility is huge.
Who did you get the hockey bug growing up that really inspired you to lace up the skates and go? Was it watching Maple Leafs games as a kid, or, was it your family that got you involved in hockey?
Yeah, I'd say it was my dad for sure. He watched the Leafs every Saturday night on Hockey Night in Canada, and we made a point to do that together. And that is what I kind of grew up doing. And we'd go to OHL games in some of the cities that I lived in Belleville and in Guelph, and that's just how I started to love it and started playing it and just gravitated to it. And I probably owe it all to my dad, that's for sure.
Does Rich Peverley have any Hockey Night in Canada towels?
I do.
Nice.
Yes, I do.
Are they framed, or can't be in a drawer, right?
No, they're not. And you know what? My kids probably don't even know the significance of them, to be honest with you. But I think playing in Boston, you play the Montreal, the Toronto a few times. So that's that definitely helped stack up those towels, that's for sure.
Yeah, I asked Turco about that. I don't even think, Craig Ludwig does this show with me once a week. I don't think he has any, and he played with Montreal and won a cup with them. So it's
oh wow.
Yeah, it's just so cool for our listeners. If you get a chance, just look up Hockey Night in Canada towel. It's just an amazing tradition that happens on Hockey Night in Canada. By the way, did you grow up with also former NHLer Greg Jacina?
I did grow up with Greg.
Nice.
That's funny. Greg lives here in town. I don't see him much. I don't see a lot of my own friends. I'm just working too much and seeing my own kids. But Greg and I, same age.
Yeah.
Greg had a different path, went to the OHL, and then, went through Florida's system. Played a little in San Antonio, I think, in the minors. Yep. And he's in town here now, and he works, and same age. Funny,
nice.
Funny, yeah.
Yeah. Any other former NHLers around your neighborhood?
There's a few, we kind of found each other after this. The OHL team here has a good alumni association, so a lot of the OHL players have played here. We get a game going and once a week in the winter, but I'm not around for that. But the summers I play a little bit, and Brian Wilsey played about 400 games in Colorado and Washington. He lives here in town. There's a few other guys, so it's good. It's a good group, that's for sure.
Nice. Speaking of Hockey Night in Canada and your career, it's somewhat similar age-wise and likewise. When you're in juniors, you played for the Milton Merchants, and I was looking it up, and you guys lost in that year you played, in Game 7 to Burlington, and on that team was fellow NHLer Kevin Bichsel, and then you guys spent about the same years in college, and then all of a sudden you're facing him in the Stanley Cup Finals. So how well do you guys know each other? And now he's a star on Hockey Night in Canada and elsewhere in the NHL.
I don't know him at all.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I don't know him at all. And that's the funny thing is he grew up in Stony Creek, which is, I think he's from Stony Creek, which is just on the other side of Hamilton for me. And yeah, played against each other. I think he's a year older than me, so played against each other in junior A. And
yeah,
he went. I know we offered him a scholarship at St. Lawrence, but I think he went to Bowling Green and obviously had a good college career. And his career obviously took off when he went to Manitoba and to Vancouver. But yeah, hard-nosed guy.
Yeah,
just a mean guy to play against. You can tell he does a great job on TV. He's very open and honest and blunt. And the only moment we really had was in the finals. He kind of went at me and I slashed him pretty good back. So that's really the only moment where I'd say we kind of had something. But no, I played against him, yeah, but no, actually I don't even know him at all.
That's fascinating, absolutely, especially since you played at such a young age together. Here's the other recall. Let's see if Rich Peverley can remember and if this research is correct. For one game on the Milton Merchants, you were teammates with Rick Nash. Do you remember that?
You know what? Someone told me that, and I don't remember. I don't remember Rick coming up and playing a game. I'm sure he did. I've met Rick a few times over the years, but we've never really sat and discussed anything. But there's a good chance because he was a heck of a player when he was young, and he obviously played. If he was 14 or 15, he might have come up and played a few games for us. But you know what? The next time I see Rick, I got to ask him that.
Yeah,
that is true. I did notice that.
I bet you didn't know you'd be asked so many questions about the Milton Merchants.
No, I did not expect that at all.
This is not a typical interview. I love going through people's careers and where it all started and where you came from. And one of those aspects, you played for an absolute legend at St. Lawrence and Joe Marsh.
Yeah.
Just that Lynn, Massachusetts accent makes him a legend. and the screaming matches and going back and hearing some of the stories from some of the boys about chairs being kicked and stuff like that. 26 years behind the bench. He was the third Division I coach in NCAA history to amass 400 wins in one institution. What made Rich Peverley choose St. Lawrence, and what was it like playing for such a legend in NCAA hockey?
Well, Joe is a fiery competitor. He is a very touching, human person that cares about his players, cares about the community, and that's why I think he lasted as long as he did. I think, he really got to know all his players, and really they all meant a lot to him. The reason I went there was I was recruited by an assistant coach there named Jay Heinbuch, who's a scout now for the Pittsburgh Penguins. And he saw me at a younger age and identified me. And he was the first one to talk to me. And I went to St. Lawrence, and, it was only about a 4.5 hour drive from my house, which was a pretty great thing for me, for my parents, so they could be able to come see me. So that side of it was great. The schooling was a smaller school. That was really important to my parents, just from an education side of it. The hockey was great. The year before I got there, they lost in the Frozen Four final to Boston College, I think it was. Good hockey school. And, when you're there, it's school and hockey, and that's all it really is. And it just helped me kind of focus on what I wanted to do when I got older. That's for sure.
When you were traded to Boston, did you get off the plane and say, everyone sounds like Joe Marsh?
Oh yeah, the accent, it's I love it. I love Boston. I think it's just the best city in the world. The passion and the love for the sports I don't see it in anything else except for, you could probably argue some NFL teams, maybe the Cowboys in Dallas, but maybe you could argue some European soccer teams as well. But it's the passion for its sports.
Yeah.
It's there's something going on. Like if you're the major pro teams aren't playing, then you got the college teams and they're all playing and they're all well attended and everybody loves sports there, and it's just fun going back.
Did you realize that even after all these years, Rich, you are still in the top 25 as far as all-time points in St. Lawrence history?
No, I had no idea.
Yeah, number 25 now.
Yeah, I had no idea. There's obviously some pretty good players that came out of there, and some outstanding players. And I finished St. Lawrence. I did not think I was going to be an NHL hockey player. I really didn't. I thought I was going to Europe and was going to try to make a career over there. And, it just, it worked out. But, St. Lawrence was a big part of that.
Yeah. All right. So goalies are unique, and you had a interesting one who's turned into a broadcaster in St. Lawrence and in Mike McKenna. When you were back in St. Lawrence, did you think to yourself, this guy is going to be on national radio?
Looking back, I could probably say yeah, but at the time, did I think that? I would say maybe. Mike always articulated things so well. He's such a good speaker, and he loves the game. He loves the nuances of the game, and he's a good person, and he works hard. And talk about a guy who edged out a career for himself. Like played pro hockey for how many years, and he had a great career at St. Lawrence. He's a good goaltender, and he was always good. And then obviously playing in the minors for so long. When I think of Mike McKenna, I think of the heavy metal band music he used to love to go to when he was younger, and he still loves his heavy metal music. And I could just picture him with his Metallica or Slayer t-shirt on, and but that's Mike, and that's what he loves. He has his own little quirks, and I think that's awesome.
Did he get to play it in the room for the boys? I mean, who chose the music for you guys?
Oh, that's a long time ago.
Well,
he might have, maybe a bit. Yeah.
Okay, I was just saying that because Appleton Arena is an arena I have to get to. That barn just seems so special, with the wood all over the place. Such a small school, but yet playing major Division I hockey. They love their team up there. It just seems like it's a community. And I'm looking at pictures last night, and I'm like, wow, I have to get to this university and see a game in there, because the acoustics with all the wood must be amazing.
It is. There isn't many rinks like that anymore, and it's a special place with lots of memories. And they did a fantastic job there with the alumni a couple of years ago and redoing it, putting quite a bit of money into the arena and fixing it up. And it's just has a special place. Obviously, so many great teams have played there. And, if you ever want to see a game, Clarkson, St. Lawrence, probably one of the biggest rivalries in college hockey.
That's right.
If you can pack probably 4,000 into a small little 3,000 seat arena in either Canton or in Potsdam, and it's an electric atmosphere.
It is amazing. Earlier this year, I went to see Boston University, Quinnipiac, and they were both ranked in the top 10. And I was just the level of play as far as college hockey, it was always great. And you always had those historic rivalries, but I mean, it is truly special, and I think it's awesome that kids are looking at college as an option to develop their career, and NHL teams are saying, you know what, this is fine, this is a real good system to be in, so we can draft you and absolutely go to college.
Yeah, I watch a lot of hockey, and I would be at a junior game on Thursday night, and then I'll watch a junior game, and then I was watching a college game on the weekend. And the pace of play is tremendously higher in college hockey. And, you can attribute that to guys that are older and stronger and they're more men. But, they play every game like it's their last. Every game is a playoff game. There's, it's a great atmosphere, usually great hockey. And, for 4 years, and you can put your prospects into a place where they, they're getting stronger, they're eating well, they're learning how to be a good pro, but they're also learning how to be a good person and finishing all their studies and getting everything done and having discipline in their lives. And if you can put them in that type of environment, it definitely is a good place to develop.
And Rich Peverley then went on to play for the South Carolina Stingrays of the East Coast Hockey League. Not a bad place to start your career, Charleston. That's not a bad place to start. Nice southern city.
Oh, it's beautiful.
Yeah.
Beautiful place.
Yeah. So you had a great year. And kind of a cool story is that a former St. Lawrence alum noticed that you had a great year in Ray Shero. He was the assistant GM for Nashville at the time, and he actually brought you into the Nashville organization.
Yeah, you know what? I had a great year in Charleston. I had the coaches there now. The head coach Jason Fitzsimmons is now a head pro scout for Washington Capitals, and our assistant coach was Jared Bednar, coach of the Colorado Avalanche.
Nice.
So we had great coaching, good people there, great place to live. I really enjoyed it down there, and I had a great year. I really enjoyed it. It was the lockout year. All the AHL teams had about 10 guys from the NHL down on their rosters, so it was hard to get up to the American League. And I was really lucky that Ray had come see me during my time in the East Coast League, and maybe some other teams had watched as well. And I got an opportunity. I had to start the next year in the East Coast League in Reading, but once there was a few injuries in Milwaukee, I got an opportunity to go up there and play for Claude Noel, and I just relished the opportunity. And we had a great team down there. Lost in the Calder Cup Finals, and all those players that played in the NHL. There's out of all that team there in Milwaukee, there's quite a few NHLers, so it was a fun team to be a part of.
And there's some great history in Milwaukee as far as hockey, just like in the AHL, just like Hershey and some other cities. So that's terrific. How tempting was it? Having some success in the ECHL, having some success as far as the AHL. Was Europe calling at any point?
Yeah, there was. After my second year, I think in Milwaukee, I maybe got about 17 games in the NHL, but I wasn't sure if I was going to make the team in Nashville the next year. And I did the following year. I started back in the minors, and there was a lot of teams calling, and I wasn't sure if I was gonna jump yet. I kept saying I'm gonna give it another year. So I think the next year I had to go through waivers. So that year I think I ended up playing, I think maybe 30 games or 40. I can't even remember how many games I played in Nashville that year, and then we lost in. That would have been 2008. We lost to Detroit in 6 games, and I was able to play in all those games and in those playoff games. And that kind of, helped me solidify myself. And, I started the next year in Nashville, but, things just didn't work out. So, but they gave me a great opportunity, and, I was so lucky to be a part of it.
It's so interesting too with your career in that, playing college hockey, playing juniors, and it's mentioned that, things get quicker, and then the AHL and then the NHL, and all of a sudden you're in the playoffs. And the difference between, Craig tells me, like, there's preseason hockey, there's regular season hockey, and then playoff hockey. And they're all completely, same but different speeds. And I'm sure, as a kid now playing in your first playoffs, it must have been a speed that you hadn't seen before.
Yeah, it was dialed up. As much as this might sound like, I do think that my time in the American League in the playoffs helps you prepare for NHL playoffs. And then I would say it is a different animal, but you learn to grind. You're playing every other day. A lot of guys, it's hard. It's the weather's getting nice, and you're like, oh, I want to go home for the summer. But if you got a good group, you want to be there and you want to win. And I think, in Milwaukee, that helped me prepare for playoffs in Nashville. And, I think I got my confidence in Nashville, but that, like you said, the pace of play, the physicality, everything gets dialed up another level in NHL playoffs. And, you got to be able to step up your game, and you can't be scared. And, I was lucky. I got a good opportunity in Nashville.
Was there a guy in Milwaukee when you played in the playoffs like, hey, this is how it's done? And I just liken that to what's going on with Texas, Bourque, Stankoven, and on that line, Curtis McKenzie, just a former NHLer, now playing in the AHL, captain of the team, just kind of the leader that's there year after year, kind of teaching the young guys. And in fact, Thomas Harley mentions Curtis McKenzie when he was sent down as far as, development and what Curtis brings to the table.
I think, we had some older guys in Milwaukee. We had Darren Hadar, who's one of the best American Hockey League players of all time. He was outstanding. We had another good leader in Greg Clausen. But, we had a really good group of young players, too. We had Shea Weber, Jordan Tutu, Scotty Upshaw, Kevin Klein, myself. We all, had pretty, it was Greg Zanin. There was quite a few guys that played a lot of games. And, we were just all motivated and we enjoyed each other's company. And I think that's why we did so well. And all those guys that were in Milwaukee with me were playing in playoffs with me in Nashville the following year. So, it wasn't like it was just I was going up to a new team. All these guys had kind of graduated, and that's what kind of made it a fun team to be a part of.
Yeah, and from Nashville, you go to Atlanta, and just doing a little deep dive on Atlanta, and it's talked about as a possible expansion or a team moving to Atlanta in the future. Your experience in Atlanta seemed, really good, and you played with some amazing players. It's just shocking to see your years in Atlanta that you guys didn't make the playoffs, and names that stick out: Ilya Kovalchuk. You played with Antropopov and Afinogenov, and you had all kinds of talented Russians on that. That must have been a pretty good party scene as well. Those boys, I'm sure, could get after it if they wanted to.
The Russian guys were fun, but we had some talented teams. I couldn't really ever figure out what happened in Atlanta. I even watched, there was a Hawks game on TV the other day, and there didn't seem to be anybody in the building. And I don't know if it's the location of the arena or what it is, but for a city that size, and for the amount of people that love sports, you'd think that it could be successful in the right situation. There was many games, there wasn't many people in the stands, but the odd games where you got a good team coming in, there would be quite a few people there. But it's too bad it never worked out. But if they feel like they can go back there and be successful, as long as they do it the right way, Atlanta's a fun city, that's for sure.
Were you excited to be traded to Boston? Obviously, they had an amazing team, but, there is obviously a transition, and you spent several years in Atlanta and, like I said, had, good success. When that happened, take us through it. You get the call, and next thing you know, you're, heading toward a playoff contender.
When I look back at it now, I'm kind of going back to the Nashville days. I might go off on a bit of a story here, but I always enjoyed telling this one. I actually talked about it with Barry Trotz at World Juniors this year. I get put on waivers in mid-January by the Nashville Predators. Steve Sullivan was returning from a back injury, and he's coming back. He hadn't played in about a year and a half, and they needed to send someone, to create room for Steve Sullivan. They had to send someone down the minors. So Barry brought me in his office and he said, I know you're getting claimed on waivers. I know there's quite a few teams that have told me they'll claim you. And you hear that, but you really never know. And sure enough, I'm at the airport the next day waiting to board a plane to go to San Antonio to meet the Milwaukee Admirals that are down there. And I get a call at, waiver time. It's 2:00 and Atlanta had picked me up, and, I couldn't. John Anderson had seen me. He was my coach in Atlanta, had seen me in the minors for several years. He was with the Chicago Wolves and gave me a great opportunity. And it's a funny story because, I think I was put on waivers on a Friday or a Saturday and got claimed, played Tuesday at home, first game, Thursday against the Leafs. I think we won in overtime. I scored the overtime winner, had 3 points. Then we went into Nashville the next night. And this was less than a week after I got put on waivers, and we beat them 7-0, and I had 3 points. So it's funny how the world works, and that was quite an interesting thing. But I bring that up because John Anderson, it was obviously gave me such a great opportunity to play with some really good players in Atlanta. I started on a line with Ilya Kovalchuk,
Yeah.
going down to the minors, and then next thing you know, I'm playing with a star player. So, you know, my confidence just went through the roof when that happened. You get a couple points and you start feeling like you can do some things. So, you know, I got a great opportunity in Atlanta, and you know, when I got traded to Boston, I was a completely different player than, you know, the player that had started in Atlanta. I'd learned to be a better two-way player. You know, worked on my face-offs, and you know, I think when I did get traded to Boston, I was a little worried to go from being a top 6 guy in Atlanta to, you know, where are you going to fit into the lineup? And, you know, right away, Claude Julien came up to me and he's like, you know, you're going to play with Kelly and Ryder, and, you know, you can play whatever side you want. And I ended up, Chris Kelly was a left-handed centerman. He took draws on the left. I took draws on the right. And although it kind of started and it didn't work out so quick, you know, by playoff time, we started to really gel, and it was a really fun line to be a part of. Even though, you know, you're not per se the top 2 lines, you still felt like you had a role and you were being an important part of the team. And I think, you know, when I did go to Boston, that was, you know, I just was pushed into a role, and they gave me time to figure it out, and it worked out for the best.
All right, two quickies about, you know, Atlanta. When you do dominate Nashville like that, any chirps or any looks the other way, like, hey boys, doing all right over here in Atlanta?
No, not really.
All right.
I think there wasn't anything. I respected a lot of the guys over there, but you know, some fun guys on the other side, and no chirps. That's kind of not my thing. I just put my head down and work. So, you know, it worked out. And did I feel really good about it? 100%. It was an awesome time and something that I'll never forget.
Yeah. Let Colby Armstrong do the talking, right,
chirp,
Rich?
Yeah.
Let teammate Colby Armstrong do the talking.
Yeah. Colby was good at that stuff. We had a few guys like that, so that was fun.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. All right, so you make the transition to Boston, and all of a sudden you walk into a room, and you know there are a lot of great names, and it was a terrific, Was that room different than others that you had played in as far as your career?
100%. It wasn't even close. You know, we had some good leaders in Nashville, good leaders in Atlanta, but you know, when you're talking about those Zdeno Charas, Mark Recchi, Patrice Bergeron, these guys pushed each other harder than anyone I'd seen before. I'd say the level of pace and practice, the competitiveness in practice was I thought I worked hard. I went there and I didn't think I worked hard enough. And I learned a lot about work habits and how to treat yourself away from the arena. And we had some really, really good guys that pushed each other. Milan Lucic pushed Chara. They'd be killing each other in the corner, but you know, they practiced how they played, and they all practiced extremely hard. No one took a practice off. It was a fun team to be a part of in that sense, because felt like you got better every single day.
Yeah, absolutely. And what a run it was. And I remember the Cup final because, you know, you had so many stars on both sides, but at the same time, you know, your line and really the grinders played such a major part of that series on both sides. So, I mean, they were featured with, you know, stars in net as well with Luongo, but, you know, at the same time, and it was just it was one of those things where it was, you know, your line, and it was really a tight checking series.
Yeah, you know what? I think I remember starting that series in Vancouver, and everybody on Canadian TV saying that the depth of the Vancouver Canucks were better than the depth of the Boston Bruins. And I remember looking at the stats, and I was like, well, we've got some pretty good players on our third and fourth line that have had good playoffs. You know, I think Michael Ryder had 18, 19 points in 25 games on the third line. You know, Chris Kelly and myself chipped in. You had Gregory Campbell and Dan Paille and Sean Thornton chipped in. Like, you know, we had guys that, you know, your top six could do it, but then, you know, your other lines could win you some series too. I think the first round against Montreal, I'd probably argue that our line was the best line with myself, Kelly, and Ryder. And you need sometimes other lines to get going. It can't be the same guys get going all the time. It's kind of, you know, it's a lot like last year with Max Domi in Dallas. Like, if we didn't have Max Domi, he was arguably our best player against Seattle in the
Yep.
Seattle series. So, your stars can't always pull you through. Sometimes they even each other out, but you need other guys to step up and kind of help you win.
Yeah. Can you remember hoisting the cup, or is it just one of those things that's just so unbelievable that you can't remember the moment?
Oh no, I remember everything.
Okay.
Yeah, I remember the last 3 or 4 minutes. It got to 4-0, and you're kind of like, okay, maybe I can breathe a little bit. And it was just a surreal moment with my family there and my wife, and
Yeah.
it was just exciting. It's so exciting, and everybody just having so much jubilation. It was something that I hope I can, it'll be a different feeling if I ever have another chance to win, because I wasn't playing, but
Yep.
When I did win, when I played, it was something I'll never forget. That moment, never forget the moment you put that cup over your head, for sure.
Absolutely. And a 2-goal game too. And that's just, I mean, I bet when those goals, the first one was a real pretty pass that you received and, put it through Luongo. The second one was a deflection, right?
Yeah. I guess that playoff for me was interesting because I played the first, I'd say, first round and half of the second round with Chris Kelly's line. And then Patrice Bergeron gets hurt, and I go up to his line, play with Marchand and Recchi. And then Bergeron returns, and Tyler Seguin came into my spot, and he was outstanding in the Tampa series. Big reason why we won. So he kind of took my spot. So then I went down and played with with Campbell and Paille on the fourth line. And then as the Stanley Cup Finals gets going, Nathan Horton gets hurt in Game 3, so they need someone to play on his line. So I ended up playing on every single line in the playoffs that year.
Wow.
And obviously I got a couple great passes in those Game 4 and scored, but unfortunately Nathan Horton was hurt. But I was lucky to have an opportunity to play with some great players.
Have you been on a duck boat since the parade?
No, no, I have not. No, I have not. But you know what? They are fun. They were fun.
Yeah.
I did go on a duck boat tour, I think, either before I around that time, but they are fun.
I mean, I grew up there, Rich, and it's one of those things where the old Boston Garden, so much tradition, Raymond Bourque, Cam Neely, but at the same time hadn't won a cup since 72. Every time they got to the finals, they faced the Edmonton Oilers and Wayne Gretzky. So it was just like a little tough sledding, but at the same time, and got bounced by, I think it was Philly in a tough series, a couple years prior. So for what you boys did to the city, I mean, it really rejuvenated the franchise for what it is today. Always an original six city, but I mean, your team will never be forgotten in Beantown.
And everybody says that, and I feel really lucky to be a part of a team like that. When we had gone through that Philly series, the year we won in 11, everyone talked about the 2010 series where Bruins were up 3-0, then 3-0 in Game 7, and there was all that discussion about it, and for myself and for Peverley and Chris Kelly, myself, other guys that weren't a part of the team the year before, it didn't really have any bearing on me because I wasn't there and I never went through it, and I'm sure it went through all the other guys' mind, but the confidence level was there, so it wasn't like it wasn't there. So I know I didn't even think about it, but I know a lot of the other guys did. But to win in that city, I know they've had a lot of championships lately with the Patriots, and the Celtics won, and then the Red Sox have won a few now. Just you feel like you're part of a tradition, or you're part of some kind of inner group that won, and makes you feel special because it was such like I talked about earlier, such a great sports city.
All right, jumping ahead, there is a major trade in the NHL, and Rich Peverley is going to the Dallas Stars with a throw-in of Tyler Seguin in the mix.
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead. Sorry, Rich.
No, it's obviously a changing moment in my career, in my life. It was, I really enjoyed my time in Boston, enjoyed the guys, and, with Tyler, I think, Boston wanted to move in a different direction, and at the time you have to respect whatever decisions they made. And the salary cap that year, I believe, went from 70 to 64 because of the lockout.
Yeah.
So Boston had to shed some salary. So, I was thrown into that mix, and, I talked to Jim Nill and to Lindy Ruff before I came, and, I was excited about an opportunity. And, if it wasn't, I look back on it now, how many years later, I feel really lucky to be able to meet Jim Nill and be able to be a part of his staff, because he's such an incredible human being and been through so many things in his life, but also in his hockey career. And, it's kind of a blessing in disguise, I guess you'd say, where, I didn't really want to move on from Boston, but, to be a part of an amazing organization in a great city. And, you look at it now, like you go to Stars games and they're sold out, and there's a great fan base, and, you feel lucky to be a part of it.
Yeah, absolutely. And, playing with Seguin and now working in the organization with Seguin still there. I mean, just, watching the games, Rich, it's really great to see how good of a two-way player he's become. And I know part of that was under Ken Hitchcock, where he started to kill penalties as well. But, it's just really impressive how he's elongated his career. And now that the injury is finally healed, we're seeing, on that line, that's a pretty special line with Mason Marchment and Matt Duchene. And, it's great to see Tyler Seguin thriving once again.
It is. And I think for Tyler, like he's become a good two-way player now for quite a few years,
Yep.
But you could see his skating was with his hip that he had to get it fixed, or if it was his knee, or, once he got all that fixed, he just looks like a different player. And even last year, for Tyler, I think, if you put him with good players, he's an elite hockey mind. And, for Marchman, it was kind of, he had gone through some personal stuff. It's first year transitioning to a new team, but you had seen that talent he had in Florida. And, he showed glimpses of it last year, but I'd say it probably wasn't as consistent as we would like. But, to his credit, had a fantastic summer. He came in, and Matt Duchene has just driven that line. But I'd say, those other two guys have been just as good, and they've been excellent together. And, when you've got 3 or 4 really good lines, you feel good about your team, because like I talked about earlier, you can't win with one team, with one line. You're going to need depth. And that's, I think, has given us a lot of success.
Yeah, absolutely. And then you look what's coming up from Texas, and the future is bright, and you're a big part of it. And so glad you're a part of the organization. Can't wait to see you. I'm sure it'll be in a 3-piece suit, but raising that Stanley Cup over your head. Once again, that would be that would be special in Dallas, since we haven't had it since 1999. Rich, I've really enjoyed this. Thank you so much for talking about the current Dallas Stars, and then going back and looking at your career. It was a heck of a career, my friend. And, awesome to see, went from undrafted to raising a Stanley Cup. It's a terrific story. And congratulations on what you're doing in the personnel department. I'd be remiss to ask, if I didn't ask, general manager at some point, is that something that, has crossed? I know, your family's special and everything. That takes a lot of time. But, is that something that eventually you want to gravitate towards?
Yeah, absolutely. It's something that I've, you have goals in life, and I would love to do that. That opportunity would have to come. I mean, I'm really close with my family, but at the same time, they support me, and, if it ever an opportunity came, I'd love that in the future. So, I'm just enjoying what I'm doing right now. And if ever an opportunity like that came, that would be great.
And let's plug the foundation as well. If you did something terrific after your Stars career, and you were very proactive, and if someone wants to get involved, how can they get involved? I know here it was really cool, because we have now defibrillators on every single floor, and that's wonderful, and proper training's done. And talk about the foundation, where people can find more information.
Well, after unfortunately my incident there, my wife and I decided to give back to so many people that helped us go through some hard times, and a defibrillator saved my life, and during that time there wasn't that many defibrillators around. We did run a few foundation things in Dallas, and we do it here in Guelph still, and just try to raise awareness for AED training and to buy AEDs. And I know some of the AEDs that we've raised money to purchase to put into arenas or into buildings have saved lives. So we feel pretty special about that. We worked with the Heart and Stroke in Canada here in Ontario, and we also in the past had worked with the American Heart Association in Dallas, but just great charitable things that we've been able to accomplish, and I feel very lucky that we were able to get some well needed things put in place.
That's awesome, Rich. Thanks again for joining us. It was a great hour spending time with you. I know our Spits and Suds listeners will love it.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. That's Rich Peverley, Director of Player Personnel for your Dallas Stars. That's going to do it for another edition of Spits and Suds One Timer. I'm Gavin Spittle of 105.3 The Fan. Have a great day, everyone.